everyone, it is Jessica. Thank you so much for being here with me today. So today I'm going to make a double page layout. I am using some papers from the Close to My Heart Memory Lane collection. I think they're so pretty. I really want to use these little houses here, and you'll see why in a second. I do have a gigantic stack of photos that I'm going to be putting on my double page layout. Some of them I did leave on that 4x6 size, but they're really all printed at a 3x4. So the way I'm going to make this happen is I have a bunch of flip flaps, including one big 6x12 flip flap. And I saved some of my pattern paper. It's just cut to that 6x12 size, and I'm going to use that as an extra little half page on a layout that I can use just as some more space to put my photos down. So stay tuned. You're going to see how I make that work. Now, I did also go ahead and stamp some images here from the Memory Lane stamp set. I used my intense black ink so that later I can color those with my tri-blend markers. But I'm working off my pattern book, the Make It From Your Heart Volume 3, Pattern 23, and basically it calls for the pictures to be laid out this way. So I'm just kind of getting a feel for what I want to put where. As you can see, these are all pictures of a house. So we moved a couple of years ago, and when our realtor went to take photos to post our house to list it, she sent all of the pictures to me, and I thought, you know what, my house probably was never cleaner than it was on that day when the photographer came through. So I would really love to use these pictures as a keepsake so that, you know, as my children get older, maybe they're not really going to remember this house that we lived in for 7 years because they were quite young. And I would really love for them to be able to come back to this page and kind of flip through and see all of the different rooms. And hopefully that will help them to remember our house that we loved before we moved. So I am kind of modifying that pattern just a little bit. I'm adding a few extra pieces where it doesn't call for photos. And then I'm going to put my journaling in that bottom right-hand corner. What I'm doing right now is just kind of going through and finding the photos that I don't care about as much. I don't need them to be on the top. They can be hidden in a flip flap, and I'm just kind of figuring out which ones are going to go where. So here you can see I'm getting ready to slide some of my pictures into that 3x4 flip flap. And I do like to attach my flip flaps directly to my page. You could also attach a flip flap to the outside of your plastic memory protector, but I like to put mine onto the page. And later in the video, I'm going to show you how I cut a slit and work this through that memory protector so it still is able to flip and flap once I have my pages in the page protector. So to put it down, I just pull a little bit of that adhesive covering off. I make sure I've got everything lined up straight where I want it to be, and I hold it in place, and then I pull the rest of that tape off. So that way it's revealing that sticky part, and I'm holding it in place at the same time because these flip flaps are quite sticky, and once they go down, they are a little bit of a pain to move and pull up. So you want to make sure that you've got it exactly where you want it when you pull that little strip off. Then I like to put the bottom photo over the top just to hide some of that plastic of the flip flap there. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done the main page. Here you can see I have used my markers to color those images in, and I have fussy cut them out. Really love that floral cluster and those houses. They are so cute. I've also pulled a couple of die cut shapes here in vellum and white cardstock because I'm not sure if I might want to use them in my embellishment clusters. So I'm just going to kind of test out and see what I like. Those white strips down there are going to be for the journaling. Now, I thought it would be really cool to have a vellum circle behind my embellishment clusters, and that was what I had in my head. But once I started putting it down, I just really didn't love it. And I think it's because you can see through the vellum, right? But you can see the two different colors of cardstock there above the house. And I just don't like the way that that looks. So I think I'm going to say no to the vellum, and I'm going to try something else. I thought about these other shapes here, but it was just a lot of square shapes, and I really wanted something softer and rounded. So instead, I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to cut some white cardstock circles in these same shapes and basically repeat the same embellishment cluster, but just use the white cardstock instead. So I want to put one of the houses over here and another one of those floral clusters. Here, I don't think that vellum circle looks too bad, but it's also not showing two different colors of cardstock behind it. And I think that's why I just don't like it on the left-hand side. Then I have one more floral cluster, and I want to make sure I've got a third point in my visual triangle. So I'm going to end up putting that other one down at the bottom there of the right-hand side of the page. I kind of mess around with it a little bit, but it's going to end up down at the bottom. So here I'm like thinking, okay, it could go at the top to form a triangle, but I'm going to put it right there, and that's going to be the visual triangle on my layout. And again, stick a circle under there just to keep everything consistent. But like I said, later I'll change that from vellum to white cardstock. Okay, I did also go ahead and use some of my alphabet thin cuts to cut out the word home. I did stack this up 4 layers of cardstock thick just to give it a little bit of dimension. And my thought was that maybe I would stamp the address to our old house underneath the word home. So I will do that part off camera, although later I do actually change my mind and use a sticker instead, but that's where my head was at this point of the creative process. So here I'm just giving one last try to those square shapes, but again, it's not soft enough. It needs that rounded shape to it. So we'll stick that circle in there instead. And I think I'm pretty much happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and glue some things down. I'll use different kinds of foam tape so that way I have different layers of dimension. So regular foam tape, thin foam tape, and just kind of come at it all over the place. Then I had a thought, all right, well, before I glue some stuff down, maybe it would be fun to do a little bit of hand stitching. So I haven't done that in a little while, and I was kind of feeling the need to do it. So I used the same circle thin cuts that I had done for my white cardstock, and I'm just grabbing the next size smaller and using that thin cut as a guide. I'm going to hold it on there and draw myself a little pencil mark so that way I can have it exactly centered around there. And then I will use a little foam mat and my piercing tool just to poke a bunch of holes around that pencil line. The pencil line won't show once I do my hand stitching, but I am going to use 4 strands of white embroidery thread and just do a basic back stitch all the way around each of those circles. Now, I did get a little excited with the gluing down of the clusters, and I had accidentally put down that floral cluster first before getting my stitching on, but I was able to wiggle my needle into there and get it done. So, okay, back to the clusters, get those down. So I would be curious to know if you have ever done a layout like this, if you've moved and you had those kind of pictures. Did you save them? Did you put them in a photo album? Did you scrapbook them? I'm just really excited to have this and, like I said, preserve it for my children. Even though we moved and I love the house that we're in now, this definitely was a special place. 2 of my children were born here while we lived here. And so, yeah, it's just going to be really nice to have this preserved. And like I said, my house is clean in the pictures, which, wasn't always the case. So off camera, I took that 6x12 piece of pattern paper and just decorated it in a similar style to what the layout is. You can see I used the same size of the strip of pink paper and kind of brought it up to the same level. That way, when this 6x12 flip flap is laying over the top of my double page layout, it'll look like it coordinates nicely. And so I'm going to go ahead and stick this in. Now I am also going to use a flip flap on the flip flap. This is just getting flip-flap crazy around here. But I needed that extra space in order to fit the rest of my photos. So before I stick this in and cut that slit, I want to make sure I've got the 6x12 one going in the correct orientation. So that white strip there is what is covering all of the adhesive. So I want to kind of think about how it's going to stick to the page and that I have this going in the correct way. So it should sit like this and then flip in that direction. Okay, so that means that my paper is in correctly. And now what I'm going to do, that flip flap, the 3x4 flip flap is there at the top, and I have removed the photos from it so it's nice and flat. I'm going to take a grease pencil and make a mark on either side so they know exactly where it starts and stops. I'm going to pull that page out. It is kind of a bit of a tight fit. I wish I would have trimmed it down just a smidge, but I'm going to pull that out. And then I will use a ruler to draw myself a line between those 2 marks. So that line now is what I need to cut in order to feed that little 3x4 flip flap through. I'm going to put a little something on the inside. You could use a piece of cardboard, or if you've got a self-healing mat, or like a cutting board from your kitchen, just something that you're not going to cut through to the other side. I'm going to use the ruler again and an X-Acto knife and just slide along. And then I use my shirt. You're going to see I'm going to pull my shirt up and wipe off that grease pencil. Now that that is all clean, I'm going to slide my paper back to the inside there. And then again, that inside one, that 3x4, I did empty it of its photos just so that it would be a little bit more pliable and easy to wiggle through there. And then I'm going to feed it through and make sure that everything is opening and closing nicely. Now, you may have noticed that I did not punch a hole on either end of where I cut that slit. Now, I have heard some people who really swear by that, and they like to do that to make sure that that slit doesn't rip any further. But honestly, 90% of the time I don't do those holes, and I have never had a problem with my slits and my page protectors ripping. But that is something that you could do if it makes you feel a little bit more comfortable. Okay, so now I have my main page and its page protector too, and I'm ready to take that 6x12 flip flap and add it directly to my page protector. So here I am showing you, there are a couple of little lines over to the side of the page protector. I'm just going to use those as a guide to make sure that I put this down straight. So again, the same technique where I pull a little bit of that backing off. I line everything up, and then I just hold it firmly in place once I've got it lined up with those lines over to the side. And then I go ahead and I just quickly pull that backing right off, and then it should stay exactly lined up. And then I can go ahead and flip it open and burnish it with my finger. This is so cool. What a fun way to add a whole lot more space to your layout. And then we've got a flip flap on the flip flap plus flip flaps. They're just flip flaps galore on here. You can see this one I'm going to need to put in its page protector, and I'll cut that later too so that I can have that other flip flap on there. But I was able to work in 22 3x4 photos in this double page layout, and I am just so excited about it. If you love adding lots and lots of photos to your layouts, then I hope you have found this inspiring and helpful. If you have any questions about how to use the flip flaps, please feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. And as always, happy crafting. See you next time. Bye.